Good morning. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran. Thanking you for joining us once again on this Friday morning. It's a weekend. I do hope you have plans and are looking forward to a restful weekend. Medyo take a break naman. Pero tatandaan ko tuloy, have a juicy. Okay, it's December 2, 2022. It's a Friday. Welcome to the program agenda. And please do join us today because we have an interesting interview and feature. We will be talking all about eagles, the Philippine eagle and its barkada in Davao, in Davao, and we will be featuring its I don't know, but what director, I believe not founder, but we'll find out if he's part of the founder. I know he is. He was one of the 10 outstanding young men of 2000. So we will be talking about the Philippine Eagle Foundation and what's there, etc., which I recently visited, and my group of visitors were all impressed. It's something to be proud of, something all Filipinos can be proud of. But thank you for joining us and thank you for being subscribers of Cignal TV. Maraming salamat po sa PLDT Home Fiber Optic Internet, Mr. Marco Borlongan. And of course, thank you to our friends who watch us, catch us on Facebook as well as on YouTube. And special shout out to my special friend in Zamboanga City, Tur Atilano. Thank you. Too bad I missed you yesterday, but we will catch up one of these days. Hello to our friends in Zamboanga and of course our fellow how do you call it? Sabongeros. Okay, now let's start the day with our daily starter, and it is from the book of Psalms. Blessed are those whose ways are blameless, who walk according to the law of the Lord. Blessed are those who keep his statutes and seek him with all their heart. I picked this particular daily starter just to encourage all of you, remind you that when you live your life and you work, make decisions, go by the teachings of God, you will be blessed. Wag po kayong bibigay, wag kayong magdududa, wag kayong magdadalawang isip. Just stay the path, follow God because he will always bless the work of your hands. And as I said, also seek his will. Kasi sometimes para tayo talaga mga bata, we are hard-headed. We want to do things our way. And half the time, what happens is we end up just making the journey longer and more difficult. Okay, let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star for the news. And the headline goes, Department of Agriculture may back down on fish sale ban. If you recall, the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources of the Department of Agriculture had recently made an announcement that beginning December 4, Sunday, they will no longer allow the sale of imported salmon belly or trimmings and pampano fish heads. And after December 4, any of these that are seen in the public markets, wet markets, will be confiscated. Apparently, an issue cropped up because based on definition of law, some supermarkets have wet market section. So naging issue po yun. Hindi sila frozen delight, fresh wet market. Although the concept of fresh is questionable if they're frozen imported. Anyway, that issue was brought to the attention of certain congressmen who then knocked on the doors of the Department of Agriculture to explain. So anyway, according to the spokesperson of the DA, they are now seriously studying and considering the suspension of the said order, and baka hindi matuloy. Meanwhile, the top of the headline, Marcos, the Mutual Defense Treaty Review, under negotiation, under evolution. As has already been said by others, the Mutual Defense Treaty will be reviewed, will be studied so that the treaty will be applicable and relevant to modern times. Kasi iba na po yung concept of territories nowadays in terms of international law, in terms of warfare, technology, so that they want the Mutual Defense Treaty to be such that it is more applicable today than 50 years ago. Meanwhile, New York, Singapore, costliest city, and Manila ranks 124th. Okay, so in a global study of cost of living, New York and Singapore pinakamahal, and Manila only, City of Manila only, this is not Metro Manila, ranked 124th. Meanwhile, the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines has placed Luzon Grid under yellow alert because of technical problems, demands, etc. So please be aware and try not to overuse electricity during the weekend. BBM wants to break joint oil exploration impasse. Okay, President BBM said that while it is a small matter for China, it is a big thing for the Philippines if we can discover or find oil, okay, in the South China Sea. Unfortunately, the impasse is because the Chinese claim it's their territory and therefore Chinese laws must apply, and the Philippines claim, based on the international decision or ICC, that it's our territory. So I believe President Marcos will be visiting China in January, and it is going to be interesting if he can convince President Xi Jinping to ease up on the restriction or the complication in the negotiation. Okay, still President Marcos being visible. President Marcos is joined by Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte during the launching of the Kadiwa ng Pasko at Quezon City, where they featured affordable vegetables and where President BBM said the nationwide Kadiwa rollout to continue until next year. Hindi lang daw po yan pamaskong handog. He wants to roll it out up to next year. Okay. Meanwhile, government malls, onion importation, mukhang lahat talaga, all about agriculture because bugbog na po sila. Government malls, onion importation, if traders and planters do not cooperate in bringing down the prices of red onion, which has reached 400 pesos per kilo in some supermarkets. Ayan po. Okay, and then we have a report from the Department of Health that there has been a decline in the RT-PCR testing because protocols have prioritized testing of more severe diseases, etc. At on the left side, we have Ayala Corporation has been recognized as one of the 25 companies in the Asia Pacific region in the inaugural listing of Steward Leadership 25. Jaime Alfonso Sobel de Ayala, Business Development and Digital Innovation Head of Ayala Corporation, received the award. Okay, so batang-bata, the next generation of Sobel de Ayala. Okay, last but not the least, NAIA entrance X-ray machine removed. If you are one of those who frequently goes to the NAIA, you will notice that there are X-ray machines at the very entrance to screen all your luggage. And now the management of NAIA under Cesar Chong has decided alisin na lahat yan dahil nakakabara lang. It is just an obstruction, and while we already have screening facilities inside the NAIA, so that may be a welcome development. We will see what airport security will discover as a result of that. Okay. Ayan na po. That's the review of the news, and it's 8:12 in the morning. Let's now go to our feature for today. It is all about the Philippine Eagle Foundation. They have a center in Davao, and we will be interviewing their executive director. Let's roll out the Betamax, Gabriel.
Dennis Salvador is the executive director of the Philippine Eagle Foundation. He is also a trustee of the Forest Foundation Philippines and vice chairman of the Philippine Eagle Working Group. For his efforts in wildlife protection, Salvador was named among the 10 outstanding young men back in 2000.
Okay, let's welcome Mr. Dennis Salvador. Dennis, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Cito. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us. And first of all, congratulations to you, your associates, and everybody and anybody, big and small, who put together the Eagle Foundation or the center in Davao, because it is impressive and it is something that gives pride to Filipinos and to environmentalists. So, job well done, Dennis.
Thank you, Cito. I'm glad you feel that way.
Okay, well, we should honor those who have made sacrifices, and I'm sure it's a sacrifice to put your time to that facility. Kumbaga, baka mamaya sabihan ka ng misis mo, sige, pakasalan mo na yung agila mo.
Indeed, that's what happens to many of our crew.
I can understand. Anyway, Dennis, just for the sake of those who have never been to the Eagle Foundation Center, who have never been to Davao, or who are seriously considering going, could you just give us a brief background of the facility? Although I've been there twice, mabuti na yung kayo mag-introduce, di ba? Where is it located? How long has it been around, etc., etc., and how did it all begin?
Well, the Philippine Eagle Conservation Program began in the early 80s when Bob Kennedy helped establish it together with government. They first initially conducted research in the field to understand more about the species. But this was really a response to the call of Dr. Jos Cororabor, who called the IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. It's a global conservation organization. He called attention to the plight of the eagle, and if you recall, during the 70s, this was also the height of logging.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was concerned that the eagles was beginning to get extinct. And that's how Bob Kennedy and the government really got involved. And they also organized a captive breeding program for the species back in the early 80s. But by 1987, after nearly 7 years of work, they decided that they thought that the conservation program, or at least the captive breeding, won't work. And so government decided to give it up. But at that time, we also felt, especially the staff, we felt that we were nearly there. And so we decided to take on the project without government support. And for over a year, I believe, we had no salaries. The little money we got from donations was all spent on the eagles' food and taking care of them.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
And but in 1992, we produced the first captive bred eagle via artificial insemination, and this was Pag-asa, and that got the ball rolling. The public began to take a real interest on the conservation of the eagle, with help of the media, of course. And since then, we produced 32 eagles at the Philippine Eagle Center. But recently, about a decade ago, we also began seriously looking into protecting the eagles in the wild and working with indigenous peoples to protect eagles where they are. So for the past 10 years, a huge part of our conservation resources spent on protecting eagles in the wild.
Okay, so it's what, nearly 40 years, if I'm not if my math isn't too bad.
Yeah, the program began over 40 years, but the foundation wasn't organized until 1987.
Yeah.
After government gave up on the project.
Okay, can we pick it up from there, Dennis? Because government, especially during Ferdinand Marcos, was proactive. To be fair, he started Kalawit in Busuanga because there was an appeal from an African leader that he was afraid that all-out war might break out in Africa, and there should be a reserve outside of the continent to preserve African animals, and that was successful until public pressure came in regarding poaching, etc., and tourism. And then the Philippine Eagle, they got into that as well. But what happened in the Philippine Eagle story? Why did the government give up on it?
Well, first of all, yeah, you're right. It was President Marcos who was the biggest patron in starting the Philippine Eagle program. He put at that time over $1 million into that project. It was a huge amount at the time, and he actually named the Philippine Eagle after Bob Kennedy called the government's attention to its ecology, because the eagle only eats monkeys. Only about 3% of its diet. It's basically a generalist predator. And so President Marcos decided to give up the monkey-eating eagle name and renamed it as the Great Philippine Eagle. So by 1987, government decided to cut off its support, and I think that was also at the time transition to another government.
Yeah,
and perhaps because of that association with President Marcos, they also gave up on the project.
so it was one of the good projects that became collateral damage of politics, so to speak.
I believe so. But luckily, it was also a Secretary past Secretary Sonny Dominguez, who advised the team to organized into a non-profit even before government gave up on the project, because he thought that we'll probably fare better under the private, as a private organization.
Yeah, wise words from Sunny Dominguez, because he is from Davao, and having been in the business sector for quite a long time, I guess and being in government, he realized that if you stay with government, nothing will happen. Everything changes every 3 to 6 years, depending on who is elected. So you guys became privatized. But was that easy, Dennis? Because, I mean, the Eagles are government property. That's a natural resource, etc. Was it easy to retain the Philippine Eagle and privatize the facility?
No, it wasn't really. It was really actually very hard for us because it was they couldn't take. They wanted the Eagles to bring them to Manila, all of them, but it was the citizens of Davao who objected and helped us build a new facility in where we are now in Malagos, Davao City.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I think there was some enmity, and the Bureau was really very jealous of that, and really gave us a hard time.
Which bureau was that back then?
It was then the Parks and Wildlife Bureau.
Yeah, because they wanted to put up their own zoo in the Ninoy Aquino Park, if I remember.
Yes, they did. And they actually built another facility in Los Baños. But that didn't, after some time, that also didn't work out. So this is the only facility for Philippine Eagles in the world.
Okay, now, so you guys managed to retain the Eagles because the Davaoeños would not have any of it, would not allow the removal of the Eagles. But what was the process like? Because I remember on my first visit, you only had a few cages, if I remember correctly. There were only a few cages. In fact, I could actually stand right in front of the cage, and the eagle would try to attack me. And then when I visited last week, parang, wow, exclusive na siya, keep your distance na.
Right. We grew basically through the support of the private sector. We have companies adopting the eagles, and that provided money to build the aviaries and feed the eagles. We also got a lot of grassroots supports. Also, since then we asked visitors to pay a nominal amount to get in, and over time that has become a large part of revenue, which in turn is used for conservation actions.
Okay, now what does it take to what's a regular day like at the center? Because when we visited, you could hardly see people. Parang bang sinasadya. I think you had like a hidden side to the facility. Tourists or visitors could walk on the path, but you don't see workers, employees, or vets, etc. Crossing your path. Parang meron silang back road. I could see heads moving behind the bushes, and I even saw a foreigner who was apparently ano bang tawag dun sa term na yon, bird specialist, ornithologist ben or something, or was it a vet?
Well, I believe since you were there last week, we currently have a volunteer vet from Netherlands who helps out.
Okay, so my wife should have spoken to her. We saw her, and if I had known she was Dutch, I would have told my wife to speak to her. But anyway, so meron it's become such a international symbol and a facility that you have visiting vets.
Right, And we also have a lot of local volunteers from the colleges, even high school level. But we also have kids as well volunteering their time, toddlers volunteering their time at the center. We intentionally try to keep keepers away from the tourist visitor area, and so they have as you notice, they work behind the scenes, and that's intentional. Most of the breeding birds are actually kept in the back, hidden from public view. And what the public sees are just the exhibit birds.
Okay, but even the exhibit birds were quite a lot. Now, how many people are required to run the center?
Well, we have a conservation breeding crew of about six animal keepers, a volunteer vet, as you saw, and we have vets on call, and the maintenance crew and we have food stock technicians who we raise our own food animals at the center, and so that's about another complement of about 9 people.
Okay, you raise your own food. So, please explain that to the public because they might say, bakit pa sila nagpa-farming o nagpo-poultry? Pwede naman silang bumili sa palengke o sa supermarket. Kindly explain the philosophy or the policy behind that, the biosecurity protocol for that.
Well, it's a biosafety protocol for the eagles, and we want to make sure that the food we feed the eagles are raised well and have no antibiotics and drugs that can be detrimental to them later on. So we raise basically guinea pigs, rabbits, mice, goats. We also feed them with carabao meat. And as you will note, these are all lean meat. We can feed them beef because that's very high on fat. And because they're in captive conditions, they can't really exercise too much. So we feed them lean meat.
Okay. Now, how many birds in total are there? Because I saw quite a lot of eagles, but you said that's not all of them. Those are only exhibit birds, and there are also breeding birds. So how many in total are there in the center?
We have about 32 Philippine eagles at the center.
Okay.
And a host of other birds of prey.
Yeah, I noticed there were also smaller eagles. You also had, I think, kites and owls.
Right.
Why is that? Because people were wondering, bakit may halong mga maliliit dito? Hindi ba delikado yan? Wouldn't it be disruptive to the eagles, etc.? You also had several sea eagles. I don't know what you call them, but I call them sea eagles. I was familiar with them in Palawan, and they can be very noisy.
Right. Yes. What you saw are the white-bellied sea eagles and fishing eagles. Well, it's also because we want really to build a learning facility for our people, and for them to differentiate between other birds of prey, between eagles and what our Philippine eagle looks like and what other eagles look like, their ecology, their behavior, and that's why we have this sort of exhibit. Also, you will note that most of these are birds of prey or raptors, and that's because we specialize with these birds. Most of these, basically nearly all these birds were donated and came in basically as injured birds or were taken from their nest as young birds and can't be released back to the wild. So that's even with Philippine eagles, we're not allowed by government to take eagles of good stock, and so most of these birds are rehab birds, which we try to make use of and breed in captivity. In the U.S., for instance, and other programs, when they were starting to lose the bald eagles and the peregrine falcons, even the condors, they use birds of really good stock to begin captive breeding programs.
Okay, so in the US, abroad, they would capture good quality birds for breeding because the notion was in order to produce good birds, you have to have healthy birds to begin with. But in the Philippines, you can only use injured or sickly birds that have been rehabilitated.
Exactly, which is weird. I think that's where we need to really get government to support this kind of a work if we want the breeding program to really take off fast. Basically, over the years, we've worked with our hands tied behind our backs.
Okay, let's go for a quick break, Dennis. And when we return, please tell us what are the things that would be ideal solutions, legislation, etc., so that the conservation and repopulation of the Philippine eagle can be given a boost. We'll go for a quick break, Dennis, and we'll be right back here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program Agenda. And if you have not visited and you are thinking about it, don't waste too much time thinking, just do it. And I'm talking about visiting the Philippine Eagle Center in Malagos, Davao City. It is truly world class. It is awe-inspiring, and it shows what Filipinos can do. And we are talking not the Philippine government, but the Filipinos and the community, particularly in Davao. With us is Dennis Salvador, Executive Director of the Philippine Eagle Foundation. Dennis, how did you get involved with the foundation to begin with?
Well, before the Philippine Eagle Foundation, I was working on a UNDP funded project on with poor communities, and I heard about an opening with the Philippine Eagle Conservation Program back then. That was in 1987, and so I just applied and got the position. And I just stuck since then. When you work with eagles, you really begin to, as you saw probably, this is a really charismatic bird, and you fall in love with it.
Oh, definitely. But being enamored or mesmerized by these birds of prey is one thing, but you did it knowing you weren't going to get a salary?
Yes. Siguro sabi nga nila, I'm a sucker for lost causes.
No, but I'm emphasizing that. I'm not making fun of you. I'm actually amazed that there are people like you and your organization who were willing to just keep on going and find ways and means, even if there was no certainty in the future of the foundation. So anyway, so you're there now. Things have improved. Is the foundation now a profitable foundation? Does it have the resources to pay salaries and give scholarships, etc.? Or hand to mouth pa rin kayo, umaasa sa corporate donations and global grants?
Well, we make do. I think every year we, thankfully, and knock on wood, we get by, and that's through the support of primarily the private sector and grassroots support. We get a lot of our funding from Filipinos mainly, and very little from foreign sources actually.
Okay.
And of course, as I said, we get a huge some chunk, about a fourth of our conservation resources from our gates. But since the pandemic, we lost that window for conservation money, and thankfully the public help out after calling the public's attention to it. The public help out, and we managed to get by without having to lay off our people.
Okay. Now, when we were at the center 2 weeks ago, we were shown a video that was done many, many years ago, and it was an impressive video. And the people who were in my group, some were businessmen, some were journalists, they were saying, dapat gumawa ng bagong video or a series of videos regarding the foundation, regarding the eagles. You could actually make a docu-movie on all of it, given the history you shared now. Why has this not been done? Or was it because of COVID, or are there plans to actually follow that route?
We actually have a docu-movie now, which was done by Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And this is entitled Bird of Prey. It's now on YouTube, by the way.
Okay. Bird of Prey on YouTube. Pero dapat siguro gumawa ka ng roadshow, Dennis, para mapakita sa mga colleges, universities, and even high schools as part of the education program of the country's wealth. Because not everybody can go to Davao, unfortunately. but how does the foundation plan to share that the beauty of the center and the wealth of knowledge that you guys have accumulated?
That was actually the plan. We were beginning to do it before the pandemic hit us. We were showing this documentary on the big screen because this particular documentary was shot using ultra high definition cameras. And so you could actually see the eagles in the wild in high definition and very colorful. And it's nice to see this on the big screen. We were beginning to show it, and we got as far as Apayao to show this movie. But we got it stopped after the pandemic hit, and hopefully we with easing of restrictions, and hopefully we can show this again to the public around the country.
Is it simply a public education program, or is it part of a fundraising program that you are doing this road show showing the high definition documentary?
It is both. It's to raise awareness, and we're also focusing sharing these movies in areas where eagles occur. That's in primarily Mindanao, Samar, Leyte, and Luzon, in the Sierra Madres and the Cordillera. But we also plan on showing this in urban setting to raise awareness and hopefully raise funds as well.
So the Philippine eagle does not exist or keeps its territory only in the Davao area, because a lot of people have that impression. Philippine eagle, sa Davao lang meron nun. But to your point, you're saying Sierra Madre, there is a Philippine eagle presence for Central Luzon?
Yes, we've been working in the field since over a decade ago in these areas. In Apayao, actually, we're trying to build a UN project in that area.
What project would that be? Is it related to the Philippine eagle?
Yes, all our work are related to the Philippine eagle in these areas, trying to conserve habitats for them and protecting them in the wild. And this is basically linked with cultural communities, since many of these areas where eagles now occur are ancestral domains.
Okay, now that issue was raised amongst us when we visited the center regarding the natural habitat of the Philippine eagle. Like any other animal or creature, habitat loss has been such a major challenge. Now, what is the future like for the Philippine eagle? Are we going to end up having to create super structures to preserve them? Parang Araneta Coliseum na mga aviaries just to preserve them? Or are you convinced that Filipinos will still manage to appreciate the Philippine eagle, and will there be enough habitat left for them? Will they cope or adapt just like some of those falcons in New York City?
Well, from my years of work with the Philippine eagle, I believe that they can adapt, and they are very resilient creatures. As long as you don't shoot them and trap them, you provide enough habitat where they can reproduce and get their prey. I think they will manage. Also, it's important for us to consider that saving eagles require saving large natural areas. And these natural areas for us essentially serve as watershed. Water is essential for our own people, for agricultural purposes and other needs. So we can't do without our forest.
So in other words, if the Philippine eagle's habitat is lost and the Philippine eagle die out, chances are we will follow unless we adapt technologically. Kumbaga, how do you survive without the watersheds, which is part of the ecosystem of the Philippine eagle?
Exactly, that's how it is. And consider this also that many of a large part of our population are poor. If these poor and marginalized communities become even poorer, our government will have a hell of a problem running this country. This in turn will impact business adversely. And how can you, for businessmen, I think it's also important that they consider this, because how can they do business if most of our people are poor?
So that would be an interesting documentary, and I hope that our bosses here on Cignal TV are watching the program, which I'm sure they are, and maybe they can hook up with you and we can air these documentaries on Cignal TV, because we're not just talking about, interesting, beautiful birds. We're talking about connections between humans, birds, and nature. So it's going to be quite an educational process if those documentaries are shown here on Cignal. Now, before the break, we were talking about challenges faced by the center in conservation and reproduction. What are the things what's on the wish list of the foundation officials, so that your work could be a lot easier and that the center could be more progressive?
Well, as you already mentioned, the Philippine eagle faces a lot of challenges. Habitat loss being one of them, and degradation of habitat as a result of mining, kaingin, timber poaching, and agricultural land conversion. But also, many of these, the eagles don't have a problem reproducing in the wild, actually. But many of the young birds they produce are shot or trapped. Mm-hmm. And in fact, during the pandemic, we had the largest percentage ratio of rescues in our long history. We had over 10 birds captured and shot during that period. Normally, we get in normal times we get 1 or 2 rescues a year. But in a span of less than 2 years, we had about 12, I believe.
Wow. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. Good thing that the Philippine eagle are reproducing. Bad thing that they are reproducing and their eaglets are being captured or being shot.
Right. And also there's also the recent threat of avian flu. I'm sure we've heard of avian flu, the epidemic hitting Pampanga and Nueva Ecija. And this virus potentially wipes out large captive populations. And so we're really concerned about this eagle, and that's why we have moves now to transfer the breeding birds to a more secure area, which is off public.
Yeah, because my wife did mention that to me. She said, Cito, did you notice that there's a sign saying if you came from a poultry or if you came from a facility that has stocks poultry animals, please do not enter. And that's when I realized, okay, this is going to complicate matters. So now what's on the table is to separate the viewing or the display birds from the breeding birds.
Right, and really to another area where we are now. We're surrounded by game farms and poultry farms. So
pagpaumanhin niyo po, kasalanan po namin.
But that poses really a danger for.
Yeah, but let me just out of curiosity, since you raised it, because I do work with BMEG. I'm a volunteer of BMEG, and I've been a campaigner for vaccination. Hindi ba nava-vaccinate ang mga Philippine Eagle regarding all of these contagious diseases, viruses, etc.?
I don't think we have one for avian flu.
Mm-hmm.
You see, what works for poultry and game animals probably won't work for the Philippine eagle, and it hasn't. I believe even globally we haven't heard of such a vaccine for raptors.
Okay, but is there an immediate threat? I mean, you know what I mean by immediate threat, that, it's already in the, at the gate of the facility. Is there an immediate threat for raptors? Have there been reported cases of such birds being infected by avian influenza?
Well, it has hit North Cotabato and Davao del Sur.
Mm-hmm.
And that's less than 100 kilometers away from where we are. And as you know, birds can fly huge distances, and there's really potential for contamination.
Okay, so what are the other things on the table? So you want to move the breeding facility because for biosecurity, are there potential sites? What's involved? How much money are you guys going to need?
Well, basically, we already got the city government to agree to lend us land and provide road access to it. But we really need to raise about 60 million to build another facility for the eagles.
Okay. Naku, ilang sabungero lang ang tatawagan mo, Dennis. Larga na yan.
Sana. So actually, funding really is a problem. Hindi naman lahat ibigay. Kung lahat sana ng Pilipino kahit piso man lang contributes, that will really go a long way. So funding, but with government, I think.
But wait a minute, Dennis. You've had very good success with private groups or with the public, not with the government. Not that we're being critical of government, no? I mean, it's just volunteerism is at the backbone of the foundation. What about a fundraising project for that breeding facility? Aren't you guys convinced that we should start it?
Yes, we are. Actually, we're starting it. What kept us was basically Davao City government's permission to use the land. And now that we have it, I think we will begin a capital campaign for that facility. Yes,
especially since the Philippine Eagle is already on the face of the Philippine peso. I think the 1,000 peso, a simple matter of using that and connecting it with the success of the program. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of support, and you can count on us as well. Now, besides a remote location for the breeding facility, what else is needed? You were talking about the rule that only maimed or captured birds, injured birds can be used for breeding. Is that really a big issue?
Well, it is a big issue since you cannot expect regular and good production from the eagles that we have currently have at the facility. If we have good stock, I think the breeding program can take off. Note that these birds take a long time to mature, and they're very difficult to pair. So it's not just a matter of putting male and female together and they pair. It's a long process as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think we need from government. I think we need some permits and latitude to allow us to use good stock, and also to allow.
But how do you do that? You have to capture free birds.
Yes, you have to capture birds. And in fact, I think we're better off capturing birds, young birds in the wild, because rather than get reports of them getting shot at, we don't have enough habitat for these young birds as they fledge off the nest to begin with. And most of
Okay.
the little forests that we have are mostly occupied already.
Okay.
These eagles require 7,000 to 11,000 hectares of good forest for a pair. And we don't have enough of that, really.
Okay, well, let me explain to the public, ladies and gentlemen. I breed chickens. I'm a rooster man, and I can confirm what Dennis is saying. Normally, in the rooster business, we only use injured or baldado roosters for artificial insemination. But when you use young roosters, it's a lot easier to collect semen and do the artificial insemination. So I can relate to the plight of the foundation. Mahirap nga naman pong kunan ng similya yung matanda na o baldado pa na traumatized. So their reproductive capacities are not consistent and virile. Okay, so we're talking about new facility for breeding, for latitude and permits from the government, from the Bureau of Animal Industry, I believe. Is that correct?
Oh, basically DNR.
DNR, sorry. So it's not the DNR. So, well, with the new secretary, baka naman mas progressive yung nakaupong secretary ngayon. Perhaps we should ask the foundation to invite her over. Anyway, so what else? Before we go, we've got about 2-3 minutes left, Dennis.
Well, yes, indeed. Sec Tony Yulo is a progressive thinker, and funding, of course, we need hopefully get some funding support from government and more private sector support.
Okay, and towards what ends are the funding support required, and how do they go about it? Because I saw a wall at the facility where you had a wall of donors who actually are supporting. Kumbaga no, scholar nila ang Agila for 5 years. I think for what is it, 100,000 a year?
200,000 a year.
200,000 a year for 5 years. Or essentially 1 million per eagle, and that's supported by these companies and individuals.
Right. So this money will be used to parties also support captive breeding, but we also this will essentially, but the bulk of it will go towards working with local communities and building their capacity to protect nesting eagles where they are. So we have this culture-based conservation program where we work with indigenous peoples and provide them, address their livelihood concerns, hopefully lift them of poverty. And so they begin to see profit in protecting the eagles in our behalf.
Okay, who comes first, the eagle or the native? Pasensya ka na, nagpapatawa lang ako ng konti, no? But how do you go about it? There's a sighting in Apayao. Sige, punta tayo doon. Let's help the local community, give them business, livelihood, so they won't shoot or kill the bird. Is that how it works?
That's essentially how it works. And we provide them with opportunity, livelihood, or whatever their needs, but also their social as well as their cultural needs, so that they begin to have some ownership over the eagle. I think this approach has worked well over time, and we managed to protect many nests across Mindanao and in Luzon. And
don't forget the Visayas. I didn't realize that they also have Philippine eagle in the Visayas.
Yes, we don't have a full program in Samar yet, although we do field work there. But we're also preparing Leyte, because in Leyte we believe that the eagles have become extinct since Yolanda. We haven't seen an eagle since then. And so we're working to prepare that area as a potential reintroduction site for the species.
Ayun. Okay, so it's not just reproduction, it's not just environment or protecting the eagle, you're also reintroducing to area. Well, Dennis, we've run out of time, but I'm sure this won't be the last interview. And please let us know if you're going to do fundraising, if there's anything we can do to help the foundation and the Philippine Eagle so that we can protect them for the future and for Filipinos. Thank you for your time, Dennis.
Yes, you can bet on it, Cito. We appreciate your support and we look forward to working with you. And thanks for having me.
Okay, that's Dennis Salvador, Executive Director, Philippine Eagle Foundation. And let us now go to our words of encouragement for this week, last day of this week. And it is from Justice Alfredo Caguiwa, who was the bar chairperson of 2022 to the bar takers. He said, if you are thinking of quitting now, don't. Stay the course. Plod on. Let no one undermine the courage, fortitude, and strength that it took for you to arrive at today. Walang bibigay, walang bibitiw. I'm Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us this week. Thanking you for supporting One News, and God bless all of you. Please keep it here on One News.